What is going on, everyone? The one and only here, coming to you live only this time, reviewing the MacBook Pro 13-inch. This MacBook Pro is the ultimate portable machine. To cut this video short, if you want a powerhouse in a small compact design, this is the MacBook for you. Stay tuned for a more in-depth look at this newly refreshed machine. It's a marginal update, but still a decent one at that. So buckle up, grab some snacks, and get ready for this review. Let's jump into it. So just as before, the unboxing for the MacBook Pros are identical for both the 15-inch and 13-inch, just scaled up or down for size and a difference in your charger. We have the beautiful MacBook Pro with Touch Bar in profile with our typical majestic white Apple box, MacBook Pro branding on the top and bottom, and the Apple logo flanking the left and right. Turn the box around and we have serial number information as well as what kind of MacBook you got, as well as the contents of what's inside. Cut open the box since we don't have a tab, and right as the upper portion of the box comes off, you are presented with this beautiful laptop, complete with its own protective wrapping and shiny Apple logo. We set that off to the side to find out the other contents inside. As is typical, we have our product warranty and information guide, as well as the coveted Apple stickers. I have about 500 of these now, but it's always the most exciting part of the unboxings, I swear. Anyway, one big difference is that instead of the 87-watt charger found inside of the 15-inch version, we instead get a 61-watt travel adapter, which, as with the 87-watt charger, can be pulled apart to accommodate international wall adapters. The 61-watt sounds weaker, and it technically is, but will do the job to charge up your new computer just as fine as the 87-watt. Below that, we have our Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 3 cable to charge and sync your device. We move all that to the side because what we really came for is a 13-inch MacBook Pro, who is the star of the show today. Take off the protective layer, and you'll be amazed at how slim and compact the design really is. Lift open the top to be presented with a protective film to protect the glass screen while in transit, and you'll be welcomed by the Apple logo that automatically powers on upon opening up your new computer, which I think is a nice touch. Now that we have the unboxing out of the way, let's take a quick tour of the device. We start on the top with our aluminum chassis in space gray, which is this very dark and rich gray color, which works especially well with this aluminum design. We have our shiny Apple logo right in the middle, and unfortunately is not one of those glowing Apple logos like we did with the pre-2015 MacBooks. I really wish they'd bring those back. It added that flair to the MacBooks so that you could stay stunned at Starbucks with your iced caramel macchiato right at your side, but Johnny Ive and his goons unfortunately don't take our thoughts into consideration. Sad, I know. On the left, we have two Thunderbolt 3 ports as well as two more on the right hand side, accompanied by a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is amazing, especially for DJs or music producers who depend on their MacBooks for all their workloads. On the bottom, we have a one-piece aluminum cover with several proprietary screws holding it all down. Additionally, there are 4 feet on the bottom which aid in helping your computer from sliding away while you type. Open up the device and you have your beautiful Retina display along with True Tone technology, which most of us are pretty familiar with by this point. You'll also notice the new keyboard. This time it's the revised 4th generation butterfly keyboard made out of an entirely new material that is supposed to stop all those issues with this laptop. Believe me, I know countless people who refuse to buy a MacBook Pro because of the keyboard, and I don't blame a single one of you guys. Not only are these faulty, but after 4 generations you'd think Apple would get it right, but it's also how shallow they are and the amount of travel the keyboard gives. I personally like them, but Apple has to do something about it if they want to bring back old MacBook fans back into their ecosystem. To the left and right, we have our speakers, which are surprisingly good for such a small device. I personally think these speakers are more seamless than the 15-inch, and personally I like the 13-inch design better. I'm not sure. The 15-inch speakers just look tacky being that big on the side, and the 13-inch speakers look to be the perfect size to please the eyes, and undoubtedly though, the 15-inch speakers are way more bomb than these, but they still get the job done nonetheless. Last but not least, our massive glass trackpad with multi-touch support that isn't actually a mechanical trackpad, rather has sensors underneath to give the illusion of a press, similar to the home button on the iPhone 7 and 8s, which makes for a very cool effect. if I'm being honest. So the big change here is just a spec upgrade, as the design is 100% unchanged aside from the technically new material on the keyboard, but other than that, the design is unchanged. This time around, we get improved processors for the 13-inch model. This here is a 2.4 GHz quad-core Intel Core i5, turbo boost up to 4.1 GHz, 8 GB of DDR3 RAM, Intel Iris Plus Graphics 655, 256 GB of SSD-based storage, and of course our touch bar with Touch ID. Honestly, this update this year is way more lackluster than last year, because at least last year we got for the first time on the 15-inch model the option to upgrade to 32 GB of RAM, the i9 chip, and great graphics cards. On this update, we get a tiny boost on the chipset, and that's really about it. This specific model I have here comes in at $1,800, which I know is really expensive, but you do have other options. You have two other options, but are dual core options, which I would advise going against, since you're probably picking up the Pro over the Air for power. Therefore, it makes sense to go for the most power you can possibly get if you're going to go for the Pro. However, with that being said, maybe you're on a budget, in which case those options are pretty decently spec'd. You have a $1,300 option, which by the way has a laughable 128 GB SSD on a Pro device. That just irritates me. You do also have a mid-tier 13-inch Pro at $1,500. Obviously, you can have your MacBook built to order up to a 2.8 GHz quad-core 8th Gen i7, 16 gigs of RAM, and up to a 2 TB storage with no option to upgrade your graphics card like you can with the Vega graphics on the 15-inch. Keep in mind, none of these parts are user upgradable, so make sure you know what it is that you need when you order, as this cannot be changed later on. Diving into a few performance tests, for a device this sleek and compact, we have massive power under the hood. It's insane. Looking at raw performance, I ran a Geekbench test and got the following numbers. On the single core side, we get a score of 4,608. And on the multi-core side, we get a whopping 17,707, which is mad impressive for a device this slim. I also ran a Cinebench test and got a score of 1,667, which is also really impressive. I did also use the exact same computer to edit this video and didn't encounter a single problem whatsoever. Sure, rendering took a while longer than say the Vega 20 on my go-to workstation, that being my 2019 iMac, and exporting again took longer than my iMac or 15-inch MacBook Pro, but it wasn't anything that I would say was painstakingly slow. On the contrary, the performance while video editing on the 13-inch MacBook Pro is miles ahead than say the 12-inch MacBook or the MacBook Air. I've tried video editing on the MacBook Air before and it can definitely be done, but with 4K 60 frames per second, the Air dropped frames multiple times and the fan kicked up to high gear during export. Kinda scared me. I thought it was gonna overheat and burn through my desk, but it survived. My point is, while it may not be as powerful as the Pro because of space limitations, it is still incredibly impressive power-wise for what it is. To compare, the 13-inch MacBook Pro comes in at 3.02 pounds or 1.37 kilograms, while its older brother, the 15-inch, comes in at 4.02 pounds or 1.83 kilograms. And trust me, that pound makes a huge difference while carrying it in a backpack or something along with other binders and books, so the fact it's so light yet so powerful is crazy. It is only 0.59 inches thick or 1.49 centimeters, while the 15-inch is 0.61 inches thick or 1.55 centimeters, which isn't that much of a difference at all. You'll see that the overall footprint of the 13-inch is perfect, or at least I tend to think so. One last important thing to mention is battery. The 13-inch model comes with a nice 54.5 watt-hour battery, while the 15-inch has a bigger 83.6 watt-hour battery, which is substantially larger, so you would assume a much better battery on the larger one, huh? Wrong. Actually, they both are rated by Apple at around 10 hours of wireless web and up to a whopping 30 days of standby time. The reason they are rated at about the same is because the 15-inch not only has to power more pixels on the bigger display, but also has more power-hungry processors and graphics cards like the 8-core i9 and the Radeon Pro or Vega cards, which eat up at the battery. So it's nice to know you'll squeeze out about the same battery life. So in conclusion, we arrived to the end of this video much faster than most of my other reviews. Reason being is because there's not much new here. Literally the only improvements is that now the chipset has a very marginally higher clock speed. Before it was a 2.3 GHz chip, now it's a 2.4. This is a load of barnacles, so please, for the love of God, if you bought the 2.3 GHz 13-inch MacBook Pro last year, do not, I repeat, do not upgrade to this laptop. You will literally be burning your money. Literally, they are essentially the same exact device. If anything, you may squeeze out tiny improvements in video editing or photo editing, but like barely. Nonetheless, take the whole 2018 versus 2019 13-inch MacBook Pro out of the equation and look at this for what it is. A small, compact, and very powerful computer with great battery life. But when it comes to it, to get the quad core, you have to drop a pretty dime for it, so it begs the question, is it really worth it? The MacBook Air is very similar in dimensions and weight. As a matter of fact, the official leather sleeve for the 13-inch MacBook Pro fits the Air just as good. They're both compact, but the Pro definitely topples the Air in terms of performance, but that's the thing, you'll be spending much more. The entry-level Air comes in at around $1,200, and the entry-level 15-inch MacBook Pro is $2,400, so it seems the 13-inch is positioned right at the middle ground. Don't get me wrong, I am in love with the footprint of the 13-inch and the fact it packs so much power. If you want the most portable laptop, get the 12-inch MacBook. If you're on a budget but would still like some of the latest tech, get the MacBook Air since the 12-inch has some severely outdated tech either way. If you want the most powerful MacBook you can find that will increase your productivity with music creation or say video editing, the 15-inch is your guy. But if you want something ultra portable and light, but also powerful enough to get all your work done in record speeds, my guy, you can't go wrong with the 13-inch. If you have even more dough to drop, consider upgrading to higher RAM and that higher clock processor, and especially the SSD if you're say a DJ or photographer. You can't go wrong there. Well guys, that's been it. This was my review for the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I am a huge fan of. I love the portability and just how clean and sexy the device looks. Only thing I'm not a fan of is that price tag, but definitely stay tuned as I plan to swap out my 15-inch MacBook Pro for a built-to-order configuration, maxing out everything but the SSD. So definitely subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that comparison and in-depth video. With all that being said, I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.